In the past month, there has been a lot of buzz out there about all the heavy metal in wrestling cards.
Heavy metal!
So of course I gotta talk about it. Is there a groundswell of relic cards bubbling up in the wrestling card community? I don't know a thing about these Japanese wrestling cards or the talent on it, but it's still something important that we got to talk about. And the morality police were out in full effect this past month with the passing of two wrestling legends and how it relates to their cards and collectibles. This is the Wrestling Card Market Watch for August 2023. What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. Each month I do one of these Market Watch videos looking back at some interesting sales, some interesting cards, and kind of pulling out some talking points within those. In this video specifically, I feel like the talking points are going to outweigh the cards or the sales. I guess I should say the sales, because the cards are still very important to certain people, but we'll get into that. And as we go through this video and all the talking points that I bring up with these cards, leave a comment below if you have the card, what your thoughts are on the card, anything you have to say about the cards, or the talking points or the arguments that I bring up. As always, I love to hear what everyone thinks. Headline sale of the month, Upper Deck AEW Metal Universe Wrestling Cards. Heavy metal rules! Well, I might be biased, at least I think it does. And Upper Deck Metal Universe seemed to be the talk of the wrestling card community this past month. I mean, it's still going on, but the release of this product came out right at the end of August, so that's why we kind of squeaked it into this video. And I'm kind of wondering, is the excitement there because of the actual metal product and people are wanting the PMGs, people are wanting the jambalayas? Or is it that Upper Deck actually put out an AEW product? Honestly, it's probably a mix of the two. But I've personally been really looking forward to this release, and we're finally here. I love PMGs. Like, I'm one of the proponents of the Hulk Hogan PMGs. I'm so biased to that card. I don't think it's the most important wrestling card ever or anything like that, but I just love them. And it kind of goes back to the 90s basketball where these PMGs started. And take PMGs aside, like the 90s basketball stuff was just designed so well. It was crazy, it was colorful, and a lot of people don't like that, but I think that may be why I'm such a big fan of these. And people will complain about the photos used, or that, you know, it's just a basic card with a different color on it. And all of those things are not wrong, but that doesn't detract me from being a fan of these cards, and I still love them. Not to mention that this release had the retros in it. I already said the Jambalayas, Metal X's, Planet Metal. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here that's not PMGs. I like the merchandise cards with the t-shirts. That's really different. I will say, is it Bonzo Gonzo? Like, that's a little weird. But we did have a few of these sales kind of squeak in right in time, right in the nick of time to make this video, and that's what I was just going to touch on. And maybe not from a specific dollar standpoint. This card sold for this card sold for this. But overall, just kind of a popularity and reaction to the market. And I think since the release, and since a few of these sales, it's really stirred things up within the wrestling card collecting community. We've got the people out there that are just excited to have a new AEW product to open. We've got the people out there that, hey, there's a product out. Great, Upper Deck put this out for AEW, but there's all kinds of problems with it. There's a long on this person's name. There's chipping on this. The quality control is awful. You've got people who just want to go after PMGs. Maybe they're just a PMG collector and they collect any PMG from any set. And then you've got the people who, I guess, thought that these PMGs were going to sell like the 90s basketball ones do for 5 and 6 figures, and they seem to just be like trashing this release. It seemed like the community reaction to this release is kind of all over the place. So here's what I think. Overall, I think this release is a success. It gives AEW fans and wrestling fans in general new product to chase and new cards of the people that they like, or the wrestlers that they collect or super collect. There's stuff to chase of subsets and different parallels. I'm personally still going to be on the hunt for a few of these PMGs of a couple of talents. I've yet to see them pop up. In my opinion, we've had some solid sales within this release. But one thing we have to remember is that it's wrestling. And I don't mean to say that as like a degrading term. What I mean is that wrestling cards are never, well, I guess never say never, especially wrestling, right? But I don't see them ever getting to the point of a basketball, football, baseball. Those three segments of the hobby, from a popularity and demand standpoint, are always going to be higher than wrestling. Could wrestling get there one day? Possibly. Again, never say never. And wrestling over the past several years has grown exponentially. But again, I think there are a few people out there that just thought that some of these jambalayas or some of these PMGs were going to sell like the 90s basketball versions, and that's just not the case. Or at least for now, anyway. And maybe I'm partially at fault for this. Maybe I'm guilty of overhyping the product, because I do love PMGs. And I even said on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, in a discussion with Adam Gelman, I said, I think that we're going to see a few of these PMGs actually outsell the Hogan. And while we didn't necessarily see that in August, I think long term, we could see that. And that's for numerous reasons, be it, more of a modern product, the more wrestling cards going after modern product instead of going backwards. It could be the hate that Hogan gets and a lot of people liking, MJF or Darby Allin or Sting or whoever it is, and just being a diehard collector of that person, willing to open the wallet for something like that. It's actually rarer than that Hulk Hogan one. Whether it's a green out of 10, whether it's one of the reds, it's out of 90. Both of those, hypothetically, by the numbers, would be rarer, less printed than that Hogan one. And there's numerous other reasons that I won't get into on this video, but maybe down the road we kind of backtrack and touch on this subject. But time will tell overall what this Metal Universe release does for wrestling cards in general, again, with the PMGs and with some of these inserts, and for AEW Upper Deck. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Totally awesome sale of the month, 2002 Fleer WWF All Access Kurt Angle worn ribbon relic, $1,100 with $4.95 shipping. First off, I want to say head over to the WTC YouTube channel and check out a recent video that they did. Tony, Chuckster, and Jamie Stalker all talked about the Fleer Championship Clash set, and within that discussion, they were kind of identifying a lot of the really hard to find and cool relics that were produced in that set. And we're not talking t-shirt relics, we're not talking generic matte relics, we're talking some really unique stuff. The outside the box stuff, like this Kurt Angle ribbon card. Even though maybe the mainstream of wrestling cards, if that's even a thing, I'm assuming you know what I mean by that, most of them are not talking about relic cards. Prism Blacks, Prism Golds, again, PMGs, you want to go back to that, Immaculates, Impeccables, whatever it is, that's what it seems like gets a lot of the attention. But maybe these really hard to find relics that are a little bit unique and different, they don't get talked about as much, so I wanted to talk about it. They might not be shiny, they might not be numbered, but a lot of them are harder to find than you think. And when they do become available from collectors on eBay, like this Kurt Angle card we're talking about, they go for a pretty good chunk of change comparatively to some other things out there that maybe people think are more valuable. I mean, if you want to compare prices here, we've got an $1,100 Kurt Angle sale, and that's kind of rivaling some one-of-ones that we've seen. It kind of rivals low-grade Hogan All-Stars that I've seen. And on the surface, you would think, well, why is this relic card so important? And it's because there's not many out there, as opposed to some that, if I'm going to go back and compare it to that Hogan All-Stars card, it's iconic. It's one of the top tier iconic wrestling cards of all time. But again, maybe it's not as rare as this Kurt Angle card. And speaking of relic cards, there's another category of wrestling relic cards out there that I will touch on in a future video, just not going to talk about it right now. But that category of wrestling relic cards not only applies to wrestling card collectors, but it can also appeal to the broader audience of just wrestling fans. And I will explain that again in a future video. But yes, it's true.
It's damn true.
Wrestling card relics still matter. Surprising sale of the month, 2018 BBM True Heart Women's Pro Wrestling Julia Rookie Card Auto, $849. I do know BBM because that company's been around for years, but I don't know a thing about Julia. I know she wrestles for Stardom, I believe, which I'm familiar with, not an avid watcher of Japanese wrestling. So why would I want to talk about a card that I don't know anything about? Well, let me tell you something, brother. It's because it's different, and it's because it's not something that we see every day selling for an amount that is more than what we may think other things that are more popular sell for. It's a big number for, again, something that's not Panini, Topps, Upper Deck, or a vintage release. It's not Prism, it's not Wrestling All-Stars. It falls into that category that's similar to the Nick Gage that I talked about on last month's Wrestling Card Market Watch video. And that is that how people are opening their wallets and paying big time money for a lot of these, I'll say, lower tier or indie release cards. And I say lower tier because it's not the Panini, it's not the Upper Deck, it's not the Wrestling All-Stars or the Prism, something that kind of everybody within the collecting community knows as iconic or important. Yet we've got some of these indie cards outselling them. The people buying these are truly fans of the talent. They don't care what the mainstream says. They're going all in on what they like and what they want to associate and connect with within their collection. And I apologize if this sounds like a broken record. I feel like I'm hitting you guys over the head with a hammer with this over and over every month. But even though I do that, I still just don't think people are grasping what I'm trying to say. All the time, I see people react to a post on social media of someone's card or collection that says, that's a waste of money. That's a horrible investment. That's a bad buy, bro. Don't you know they just got cut? Why would you buy that? There's no collector base to flip that to. What even is this card? It's not Hogan. It's not Flair. It's not Andre. It's not The Rock. I don't want any part of it. It's not a good investment. But again, the diehards, the super collectors, they're out there doing what they want to do, opening that wallet, like this Julia card here, paying big time money for it, and not caring what anyone else thinks. They're just out there having a blast, having fun, which is what the hobby's all about anyway. Keep on rocking in the free world, you guys. Keep setting setting record prices. I love it. Questionable sale of the month, Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt cards. The world lost two wrestling legends in Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. And in a recent live stream I did, it was actually the first episode of Wrestling with Cards Live that you can go check out in the archives of this channel. I kind of covered my memories and thoughts on those two legends. But in this segment of today's video, a lot of you may not like what I have to say, but here it is anyway. Let's first look at this from the collecting aspect. I saw many great collectors, like they often do, immediately start flocking to go buy Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt cards as soon as they passed, which is fine. Okay, there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to add something to your collection from one of these guys. But as soon as they pass, not necessarily the best financial time to do that. Prices are at an all-time high then. And the reason that a lot of these collectors were doing it, based on what I could see on social media, is a lot of them were saying, hey, I didn't have any Terry Funk in my collection. I didn't have any Bray Wyatt in my collection. I gotta go get it now. It was as if this unfortunate news of these two passing was like an alarm on their phone went off, and it was like, oh, you gotta go buy them, you don't have them. And two things on that. First off, like I said, it's never a great time to buy as soon as these guys pass. Whether it's a wrestler, a sports athlete, a celebrity, as soon as they pass away, the prices skyrocket. Not to mention, we start seeing floods of available stuff come out of these people. And I think that's another thing people don't think about, is it truly gives the rarity aspect. So maybe there is a card of a Terry Funk, of a Bray Wyatt, and maybe we're told this is an SSP. This is really hard to find. If you see it, you better get it. It's almost as good as a one of one. Or this guy doesn't sign very much. All of a sudden they pass away and all this stuff starts coming out. It kind of is a telltale sign on if something really is rare or maybe not so much. And the second thing I want to mention is that if you are buying cards or collectibles of people who have just passed away and you're paying those skyrocketed prices, you're feeding into the ability for the people to try to use the death as a sales tactic per se. And there are a lot of people within the hobby that hate that. They think that those sellers are scum. So if that's your take and you want to avoid kind of contributing to those type of people, don't buy cards or collectibles from somebody that passed away as soon as it happens. And when I mention the scummy salesmen or the people who are putting up these people that are deceased and trying to profit off of it, I kind of have a different take on that. Well, this sort of thing has been going on for decades. When someone passes away, people put their stuff up for sale, trying to cash in on the deceased wrestler or athlete or celebrity. But with this Bray and Terry Funk one, I just saw tons of backlash. And what I mean is I saw on social media people that were slandering other people for trying to sell their stuff. Private Facebook groups just dealing in wrestling cards or collectibles that were saying, you cannot post any Terry Funk or Bray Wyatt for sale in this group or you will be banned. It was getting crazy out there. I mean, in my opinion, we've got enough hobby drama going on as it is. Over here, we've got fanatics and who's taking over WWE license and their arguments with Panini. We've got the stuff with Leaf over here. What are they doing with all these sticker autographs? Right in front of us, we've got all the hobby gatekeepers telling us what we should or shouldn't invest in, bro, or buy, or whatever, or collect. And then over here, we've got the morality police. And they were definitely out in full effect on this one. And here are my 2 cents on that. You can have your opinions and you can have your stances on this topic or any other kind of hobby drama topic that I just mentioned. It's always great to have an opinion and a stance on something, but ultimately your opinion and your stance has zero effect on how people spend their money or how they get their money. So then I ask the question, if you're not controlling the world of collectibles, then why even waste your energy with it? Why bother other people for what they're doing? You don't have any control over them. Let them do their thing. Mind your business. Personally, I don't go after buying specific talent as soon as they're deceased. And on the flip side, when someone dies or passes away, I don't try to go dig through my boxes trying to find what I can sell for them either. To be transparent, I did have some like base cards of Terry Funk and Bray in my eBay store. I had some graded Bray rookie cards. And of course, as soon as my notifications start going off on eBay, I knew something was wrong. Did a quick Google search, found out they passed away, and the rest is history. But that being said, I did not raise prices, nor did I pull the listings. I just left them as is. It's business. Ultimately, who am I or you to tell someone how to spend their money? Who are we to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't sell and how much that's for? Maybe that person cashed in on an unfortunate circumstance that led to an opportunity that they could further feed their family or provide for them. Maybe it's an LCS or a dealer, and with a sell of something like this, a Bray Wyatt card or a Terry Funk card, they were able to make their rent or make their quota for that week, which then provides a living for them. So I would suggest that next time this happens, just remember what I've said today, and you can have an opinion, you can have a stance, but you ultimately don't control what anybody is buying, selling, or collecting, or when that is. So there's no use in really wasting your time and energy arguing over these things. Get off of social media when that stuff happens. Focus on your collection, focus on what you're doing, mind your business. And then let everybody do know what they do have control over, is enjoying the way that they collect and doing their own thing. What do you think about any of the cards that I brought up today or any of the talking points that I mentioned? Leave a comment below. Let's get a great community discussion going. You can also reach out to me on social media, DM, email. The links to all that stuff is in the show notes. As well as the show notes, a lot of ways that you can help show your support for my content, Patreon, the eBay store, the podcast, and much more. If today's video brought you some value, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and spread the word. Tell other collectors, no matter if it's wrestling, sports, non-sport, no matter what it is, if you think they would enjoy what I'm doing on this channel, let them know about it. And until next time, click the videos on the screen for more great wrestling card content. See you next time.